In a move that has captured the world's attention, the United States has launched a significant naval deployment near the shores of Venezuela, signaling a new phase in its approach to regional security and international drug enforcement. Powerful warships, including advanced destroyers and Coast Guard vessels, have been dispatched to the Caribbean Sea, tasked with intercepting and disrupting the sophisticated drug trafficking routes that snake through these waters. This operation is part of a broader, multi-agency campaign to stem the relentless flow of illicit substances into the United States, most notably fentanyl, a synthetic opioid that has fueled a devastating public health crisis across American communities. The scale and duration of this deployment mark a serious escalation in Washington's strategy. Officials have indicated that a sustained naval presence will remain in the region for several months, underscoring the gravity with which the U.S. views the threat. By positioning its naval assets along key maritime corridors, the United States aims to apply maximum pressure on the criminal networks and cartels that fuel the drug crisis within its borders, while also sending a clear message to regional actors. The Caribbean Sea, long a crossroads of global trade, piracy, and conflict, is once again at the center of international attention. Its tranquil blue waters now conceal a complex web of geopolitical interests and covert operations. This high-profile operation directly challenges Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, blurring the lines between law enforcement, military posturing, and foreign policy. For Maduro, the U.S. presence is seen as a provocation and a test of his government's resolve. Against the backdrop of serene Caribbean sunsets and luxury yachts, the region has become the stage for a high-stakes drama. Here, powerful nations and entrenched criminal enterprises maneuver for advantage, each move watched by the world. As international media outlets broadcast the unfolding events, the world watches closely. The implications of this bold U.S. maneuver extend far beyond drug interdiction, touching on issues of sovereignty, regional alliances, and global power dynamics. The deployment stands as a direct challenge to Maduro's government, raising urgent questions about the risk of confrontation, the future of U.S.-Venezuela relations, and the fragile stability of the wider Caribbean region. At the center of this unfolding international drama stands President Trump, whose administration has placed an unprecedented emphasis on combating the influence and reach of powerful drug cartels. His approach is not just a matter of domestic policy, but a bold declaration on the world stage, signaling a willingness to use all available tools to address what he sees as a direct threat to American security and stability. Fighting drug cartels has become a cornerstone of his security agenda, with sweeping operations that extend far beyond U.S. borders. The administration's strategy involves not only law enforcement on American soil, but also a robust international campaign to disrupt the cartel's operations at their source. The U.S. Navy, renowned as one of the most formidable maritime forces in the world, has been tasked with executing this ambitious policy on the high seas. Their mission is multifaceted. It includes constant surveillance, tracking vessels suspected of smuggling, and maintaining a visible presence in international waters to deter criminal activity. Navy teams conduct high-risk interdictions, boarding suspicious ships, and seizing narcotics before they can reach American shores. These operations are often dangerous, requiring precision, intelligence, and coordination with other agencies. The Navy's direct involvement elevates the anti-cartel effort to the level of a military campaign, underscoring the seriousness with which the U.S. views the threat. This is not just a law enforcement issue, it's a matter of national security. On the other side of this confrontation stands the Venezuelan government, led by President Maduro. From Caracas, Maduro and his officials denounce the American actions, framing them as imperialist interventions and violations of Venezuela's sovereignty. The arrival of U.S. warships off the Venezuelan coast is perceived as a direct threat, a provocative show of force that stirs nationalist sentiment and fuels anti-American protests. For many in Venezuela, these maneuvers are seen as attempts to intimidate and destabilize their government. Meanwhile, the drug cartels themselves remain the explicit targets of the U.S. operation. These organizations are highly sophisticated, operating across borders with networks that span continents. Cartels manage vast production facilities hidden deep in remote jungles and oversee complex smuggling routes that use everything from cargo ships to clandestine airstrips. Their operations are shrouded in secrecy and protected by layers of corruption and violence. The profits generated by these illicit enterprises are staggering. Billions of dollars flow through their hands, fueling further crime and destabilizing entire regions. Cartels are not just criminal groups, they are deeply embedded in the social and economic fabric of the areas they control. Their influence is pervasive, making them a persistent and formidable adversary for any government. The U.S. Navy's mission is to dismantle the maritime logistics that enable these cartels to thrive, cutting off their supply lines and intercepting shipments before they reach their destination. Yet, history has shown that cartels are nothing if not adaptable. When one route is blocked, they quickly find another, constantly evolving their tactics to stay ahead of authorities. This high-stakes confrontation is a tangled web where law enforcement, military might, and international diplomacy collide. The outcome remains uncertain, but the stakes, for both nations and the region, could not be higher. The White House justifies the naval deployment as a measure to combat the deadly flow of illicit drugs into the U.S. The mission is linked to the opioid crisis, particularly the devastation caused by fentanyl. The Trump administration designated several Latin American criminal syndicates as foreign terrorist organizations. This reclassification allows the Pentagon to treat cartel operations as a national security matter. The focus on Venezuela is due to its role as a major transit hub for narcotics. The administration accuses high-level figures within the Maduro government of complicity in the drug trade. The Venezuelan coast is a critical choke point in the drug supply chain. The mission's objective is to interdict drug shipments and gather intelligence on trafficking networks. The warships are depicted as instruments of this policy, enforcing international law and protecting the homeland. The U.S. naval force is formidable, designed for a range of missions beyond surveillance. At its core are Arleigh Burke-class Aegis guided missile destroyers, among the most advanced surface combatants. Equipped with the Aegis combat system, they can track and engage hundreds of targets simultaneously. The U.S. has also deployed an amphibious ready group, led by the USS Iwo Jima. This group includes the 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit, adding strategic flexibility to the deployment. Surveillance and undersea assets like Boeing P-8A Poseidon aircraft support the operation. The inclusion of a U.S. Navy submarine adds a clandestine element to the mission. The military hardware sent to the Caribbean is more powerful than typical anti-drug patrols. This force signals the seriousness of American intent and the range of options available to President Trump. The U.S. naval deployment is the latest and most visible expression of mounting accusations against Venezuela's leadership, signaling a dramatic escalation in the ongoing standoff between Washington and Caracas. This show of force is not just about military might, it's a calculated move in a broader campaign to pressure the Venezuelan government. The Trump administration has repeatedly accused President Nicolas Maduro of not only participating in, but also profiting from, a vast international drug trafficking network. These allegations have been at the center of U.S. foreign policy toward Venezuela, fueling a series of sanctions and diplomatic confrontations. U.S. officials allege that the Maduro regime has transformed Venezuela into a so-called narco state, where government institutions are deeply entangled with criminal organizations. According to American authorities, this has allowed illicit drug operations to flourish, destabilizing the region and threatening U.S. interests. In 2020, the U.S. Department of Justice took the unprecedented step of indicting Maduro and several top officials on charges including narco-terrorism, corruption, and conspiracy to smuggle tons of cocaine into the United States. The indictments marked a turning point, elevating the dispute from a diplomatic crisis to a criminal pursuit. The indictment alleges that Maduro is the leader of a powerful drug trafficking organization known as the Cartel of the Suns, which is accused of collaborating with Colombian guerrilla groups and using state resources to facilitate the drug trade. In a move to intensify the pressure, the U.S. government dramatically increased the reward for information leading to Maduro's arrest, offering up to $50 million. This is one of the highest bounties ever placed on a foreign leader. The reward aims to incentivize individuals within Maduro's inner circle, as well as others with insider knowledge, to come forward and cooperate with U.S. authorities, potentially fracturing the regime from within. The Trump administration frames its actions as a necessary defense of the American people, arguing that the flow of illegal drugs from Venezuela poses a direct threat to U.S. communities and national security. The naval deployment serves as the enforcement arm of this sweeping legal and political pressure campaign, demonstrating that the U.S. is willing to back up its words with concrete action on the high seas. It's a physical manifestation of the U.S. indictment, bringing the full weight of American military power to Maduro's doorstep and sending a clear message to his allies and adversaries alike. By labeling Maduro a major international narco-trafficker, the U.S. is not only seeking to isolate him diplomatically, but also to rally international support for his prosecution and removal from power. Faced with the U.S. naval fleet, Venezuela responds with defiance and nationalist rhetoric. President Maduro frames American actions as an imperialist plot to overthrow his government. He mobilizes civilian militia, rallying his base and projecting resistance against foreign aggression. Venezuela's response is unwavering opposition, dismissing U.S. accusations as baseless propaganda. The government leverages the U.S. naval presence to fuel its narrative of being a victim of aggression. The U.S. operation has a diplomatic front with Mexico, a crucial partner in the anti-cartel campaign. President Trump pressures Mexico to adopt a more aggressive stance against cartels. Mexico's President Sheinbaum rejects U.S. military intervention, emphasizing sovereignty. The naval deployment near Venezuela is a message to Mexico, demonstrating American resolve. The U.S. destroyer's deployment is rooted in the opioid epidemic, a domestic crisis. The drug cartels of Latin America are sophisticated multinational corporations. Their power challenges regional stability and U.S. national security. U.S. military force in Latin America is viewed with suspicion due to historical interventions. The naval deployment is a geopolitical move affecting alliances and international power balance. It underscores the complexity of combating transnational crime in a challenging geopolitical landscape. With U.S. warships en route to the Caribbean, the situation is poised on a knife's edge. The naval presence could disrupt drug routes, leading to major seizures and arrests. However, the risk of miscalculation is high, potentially leading to confrontation. Public opinion is divided, with some supporting decisive action and others critical of military brinkmanship. The coming weeks will determine the trajectory of this crisis. The world watches the actions of the U.S. Navy and the reactions of the Venezuelan military. The deployment has set in motion events with an uncertain conclusion. The Caribbean waters hold the potential for a gathering storm.